The federal government will remain open after Congress managed to pass a last-minute stopgap measure late last night. Less than just 3 hours before funding was set to run out, the Senate overwhelmingly voted in favor of a short-term funding bill that was rushed to the House floor by Speaker Kevin McCarthy earlier in the day. Then, shortly before midnight last night, President Biden signed the bill into law, and in a statement, he called the whole episode a manufactured crisis. The last-minute agreement will keep the government funded at existing spending levels until Friday, November 17th, and it authorizes additional money to be set aside for disaster relief. But what it doesn't do is include Ukraine aid, and that was a key sticking point for Democrats. It also leaves out funds for border security, which was a key sticking point for Republicans. And although this bill originated in the Republican-controlled House, it was actually brought to the floor by Speaker McCarthy and in the end supported by more Democrats than it was Republicans. In fact, it was also Democrats in the Senate who were nearly unanimous in voting to pass the bill to prevent a government shutdown. It once again exposes the disarray among the GOP, and it leaves even more things unresolved. This does give Congress an extra 45 days to come up with a funding agreement for next year, but we could very well end up back in the same situation in just a few weeks, simply because of how far apart the different factions of Congress remain. And it was this morning when Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz confirmed that he is going to move forward with a motion to oust Speaker Kevin McCarthy.
I do intend to file a motion to vacate against Speaker McCarthy this week. I think we need to rip off the Band-Aid. I think we need to move on with new leadership that can be trustworthy.
Joining me now from Capitol Hill is NBC News senior national political reporter Sahil Kapoor. So let's talk, Sahil. In light of Representative Gaetz saying that he is going to move to oust Kevin McCarthy, what are you hearing about members on Capitol Hill talking about with respect to yesterday and how we move going forward?
Well, Charles, this is something Matt Gaetz has been threatening for quite some time now. He never wanted Kevin McCarthy to become Speaker in the first place. He never voted for him. He just kind of backed off and said he would vote present along with several others in order to pave the way for him to move. But the price of doing business, Kevin McCarthy decided to change the rules so that any one member of the House could call a motion to vacate. He decided that was the cost of doing business with his Republican hardliners, essentially allowing them to keep him on a short leash. What we saw yesterday was Speaker McCarthy's own declaration of independence from Matt Gaetz. He has been threatened by Gaetz repeatedly and very explicitly regarding the motion to vacate if he were to fund the government with Democratic votes. And that's exactly what McCarthy did yesterday. After recognizing that he had no other options, he tried to put a much more conservative continuing resolution on the floor the day earlier. It was voted down by his own hardliners, and he says that is what pushed him to make this move. Now, McCarthy spoke just moments ago on CBS Face the Nation and responded to Matt Gaetz. He said, "Yes, I'll survive," referring to the motion to vacate. He believes that Matt Gaetz will not be successful in ousting him. And he also said this is personal with Matt, dialed up his rhetoric against Congressman Gaetz, saying he's more interested in securing TV interviews than he is securing the border, that he was willing to threaten his own district with a shutdown. This is McCarthy dialing it up and basically telling Gaetz to bring it on.
Given it happened yesterday, what's the narrative from the members you're talking to in terms of how they feel about what went down? Is there a sense of accomplishment that they averted a government shutdown? Or is it a sense of sort of annoyance about being in a place where they could have figured this out earlier had McCarthy just brought the clean CR to the floor weeks ago?
It's more relief than anything else. It's exactly what you just described, Charles. They believe that they should not have been in this place to begin with. The Democrats' only demand was that it be a clean government funding bill if they had not reached a deal. Remember, Democrats control the Senate and the White House. They won't and can't simply be dictated to by one group of hardliners in the House, and they made that clear all along. And the key moment that paved the way for all of this was Speaker McCarthy's stunning turnaround yesterday morning after exiting a Republican conference meeting where he announced he would do something that he suggested suggested he would never do, which is rely on Democrats to fund the government. That was the turnaround that paved the way for a rapid succession, of events where Democrats were kind of blindsided by it. They suddenly had a 71-page bill, a continuing resolution that they were supposed to vote on within minutes, and they wanted to read it, scour it, make sure there was nothing sneaky in there, and they ultimately looked at it and decided it was fine. It was ultimately a clean continuing resolution. The Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, used his magic minute, that's a congressional procedure term, to speak for 52 minutes on the floor while Democrats decided what to do. And on the other side of the Capitol, behind me in the Senate, there was another key moment where the Minority Leader, Mitch McConnell, withdrew support for his own Senate bipartisan CR to kind of boost this bill. The only difference between the House and the Senate version, the only meaningful one, I should say, is the absence of Ukraine aid in the House. That was McCarthy's pound of flesh here. And Democrats decided that they were not going to shut down the government over the issue of Ukraine aid, as unhappy as they were about it. So that's where things stand. And the other thing I'll note here, Charles, is that Hakeem Jeffries, the Minority Leader, was asked about a potential motion to vacate yesterday, how Democrats would vote. And he said they have not discussed it yet, and he declined to say. Now, this is important because the simple math on the Republican side is that McCarthy can lose no more than 4 of his members before his speakership is over, unless Democrats step in and help him. None of the Democrats have said they would. It would be extremely unusual for Democrats to rescue a Republican Speaker of the House, no matter how narrow the majority is in the chamber. But that will be a question going forward. Do Democrats vote present to lower the threshold, make it easier for McCarthy to stay in the job, or do they do what we widely expect them to do, what any normal party would do in the House of Representatives, which is to vote for their own leader, Hakeem Jeffries, to be Speaker in such a situation?